As you can see, I peeled back all of the subflooring here so that we have access to this framing, all the structure, so that I can show you exactly how we prepared this frame to support this pivot box. There's a few key elements here. One is the interior finished floor height. So you're gonna have to have your subflooring in, and then your actual finished floor. You're also gonna wanna know the finish elevation of your exterior finish, and you have to set that elevation critical to the top of this box. I want to show you everything that I had to figure out and determine in order to guarantee that this box is fully supported and placed exactly where we need it prior to this arriving on site. So I'm going to take you down the other end of this mock-up and show you what that blocking looks like, how we referenced our center lines, and how we guarantee that we're set up for a successful install. I want to take a minute here to show you exactly what we're doing to set up all of the framing to be able to accept this pivot box. We don't have the pivot box on site. We don't have the door on site. I want to make sure that my framers, or if I'm framing it, understand exactly how to set yourself up so that once that arrives, you have some wiggle room in this area to support that box. So the first thing I have to do is I have to figure out where this is going to sit laterally within our rough opening. So I have to understand where my framing is for the rough opening and where my plate line is for our bottom plate of our wall. So I took some measurements, I snapped some lines, I came in 5.5 inches, and then I understood exactly where this pivot box was within our rough opening. The way I figured that out, which is this is my center line laterally, is there's a spec from the center of your pivot to the back of the jamb of that frame of the door, and then you want to leave a 1/2 inch for your jacking screw in order to give yourself some room within that opening. So that dictates my location laterally within this frame. The next thing I have to do is I have to determine where I want that pivot box and where I want that door to sit. Do I want it flush on the outside of the building? Do I want it flush with the drywall on the inside? We elected to go flush with the drywall on the inside. So I took my plate measurement and I added a 1/2 inch, and I determined where the center line of that was in relation to my finished drywall that will go in at the end of this project. So that's going to dictate where the center line of that pivot box is from front to back. Once I have those measurements, I understand, okay, I'm in this joist bay, I need to head something off, I need to alter this joist, possibly I need to move this joist. Once I understand those measurements front to back and laterally, I need to understand where the bottom of my header height is. So in order to figure that out, I need to understand finished floor height. So I have my 3/4 inch subflooring, and then we have a 3/4 inch piece of flooring. We have the exact flooring that we're going to be using on site so that I don't have to do any guesswork, I don't have to do any math. They will spec a top of finished floor to bottom of header height. So that's what I'm going to use to frame my wall. Once I understand the bottom of that header height, I can determine what my rough opening should be. So they also have a spec for that. So I get my finished header height, and I'm going to measure down from that. And that will give me an exact location for the top of this support, all of this substructure that our pivot box is going to sit on top of. Once I understand that height, I subtracted 1.5 inches from that so that I could put solid blocking on the top here. All our blocking is in place. You can see all my reference marks are on here. These reference marks I discussed earlier, but this is the center of our pivot pin within that box. So I have the lateral reference line marked, Then I have forward to back or front to back marked. All of that is dictated by specs, and then also where we want the frame of that door to flush out on the interior. Again, we're looking to flush that out with the drywall, so that's where I got these measurements. That box is only 12 inches by 3 inches, so I created a recess that's 4 inches by 14 inches, and what that's going to allow me to do is put that box in where I think it's going to go. But then once we have everything in and the framers are done and we're actually ready to install that pivot box and door, I have some wiggle room in there that I can adjust things. We're not using the Cradle that they offer for certain installations. One of the benefits of using the Cradle is it gives you that lateral adjustment and the front to back adjustment. For us in this residential wood frame, it didn't make sense to use the Cradle. So we want to make sure that we're setting ourselves up, that if down the road we get everything framed out and when we need to tweak something an 1/8 inch, 3/16 of an inch, that we're able to do that. Again, this is structurally bearing on this mud sill, so there's full structure beneath this, and then this 2x8 on the back that's capturing this entire assembly really is just to serve as a dam for once this is in place, we can pour that epoxy and it's not spilling out everywhere. At this point, all of the structural framing is complete and we are ready to install the subfloor. One thing to note, when you install the subfloor, you want to make sure that it is cut to the inside of this dimension again so that you have some of that wiggle room with that pivot box. So we're ready to install this subfloor and get to framing the walls up. For the sake of this demonstration, we are not gluing the subfloor down. It has to get broken down, but that'd be best practice in the field.